Общественно-политические процессы, аналитика и прогнозы, рейтинги и интервью. Специальные условия на подписку на сайте expert.ru. «Эксперт» – настоящий деловой журнал.
Пандемия значительно повлияла.
A pandemic had a significant impact on biotech innovations as well as on tools of funding. To become a successful startup, you need to offer to the market a totally new product or present a greatly improved product. That cannot be done without reviewing current models of funding. Alternative models of funding for startups in the current economic situations and other issues will be discussed by our speakers, which is called Sano Incorporate Sano. Invest into health. I'm happy to invite the participants of this discussion. Let's welcome Germes Chilov, Fusion Pharma CEO. A round of applause. Now is the time for it. Svetlana Zakirova, Vice President for R&D of NANOLEK. Vyacheslav Shulenin, CEO of MEDTECH.MOSCOW. Olga, Filon, Director of Preclinical and Clinical Development of PHARMA. Oleg, Astafurov, Vice President of for GR of PHARMASINTEZ. And I invite to the stage the moderator, Eric Brovko, founder of Zdorov.ru. Eric, over to you. Good afternoon, colleagues and friends. I'm happy to welcome you all here on this wonderful sunny day. Even though the forecast included the rain, but we have no rain and it's sunny, the sun shines, so hopefully we'll have a great atmosphere today. Look, before we move to this deep discussion, I would like to lay some foundation, some philosophy for this discussion, and let me start by saying what is health? So at Zdorov.ru we study a lot this word, this term, and we realize that health is not about health care, but it's other aspects as well. It's our body, our attitude towards this body, it's our behavior, and it's the meaning of life as well that makes us move forward. For that reason, startups may be very different. They may develop new molecules or create a meta-universe to support people with chronic disease. The world is changing rapidly around us, and the forums that help to achieve those results may be totally new and very interesting. And in recent 2 years, we see something wonderful. I was collecting statistics. Can you imagine in 2021, $57 billion were invested in startups related to medicine. And the investment market grew about 79% compared to 2020. So that was unprecedented interest. Many investors got involved. At the same time, there is this great difference between what is happening in the United States and in Russia from the perspective of how the market is evolving. I was thinking for a long time, how come you have a venture market, we have very talented entrepreneurs, we have wonderful corporations, we have a good market, but the number of projects that pass the mark of $1 billion, so-called unicorns, there are very few. So what is the reason for that? And I identified 4 aspects that, from my perspective, differentiate us. So risk tolerance or risk appetite, so we are very demanding for ourselves. We want to get the result. And secondly, our healthcare market has a large share of government. So like government share is very large. So it's in billions and hundreds of billions. Then I looked at the number of venture funds. So there are 4,000 of them in Germany, more than startups. Same thing in Finland. And undoubtedly, I talked to many startups. There are barriers to integrate new technologies. So doctors are concerned or scared, careful about those new technologies. Also investors, those who invest in those startups, they face this issue of capitalization. So how do you exit? Can you have an IPO? So where are those colossal evaluations? So in practice, I haven't analyzed several projects. For instance, so he's looking at digital medicine, digital healthcare. Difference is great. So Dr. Adam, in my estimations, I cannot tell you for sure, it can be 20 to 30 $1 million, depending on the exchange rate, which is changing every day. So $10 million were invested. Babylon Health, a British company, it's evaluated $4.2 billion. And 1.1 billion were invested. So it's similar projects as Darovia.ru. We finished investment around that was $15 to $16 million, the valuation of the company. So we built a company for $2 to $3 million of the investment. Amada Health, it's very similar. So it's assessed at 1 billion and 400 million were invested. So I see that. So some things happen in spite of things, not because of this favorable environment. I recently read a book, and it seemed to me it was very interesting. It's about rhinoceroses and unicorns. Rhinos are a classical company. It doesn't mean they're better or worse, but rhinos are companies that invest into infrastructure, that plan for decades, like let's develop a chain of clinics, so let's build a plan, and it takes some time. And then you have unicorns that act in a disruptive manner, and they just skyrocket, they just lift off, and then and very often, and these examples are given in the book, so we can see that unicorns are trying to buy rhinos, and rhinos are trying to become unicorns. So how do you find those points of disruption to become faster, more effective, more interesting? So the first question that goes to all of you is, why is it that here we would discuss it with Vyacheslav. He told me that I'm wrong. He told me that we have some unicorns. He named 3, but there are very few. That's you should agree with this, I think. So why we have so few of them in our country? So what is the explanation for it? Considering the fact that you invest a lot, you create a lot, but still, so we don't have those stories of success are very few. So let's start with Vyacheslav Shulenin. So why don't you tell us, being the person who sees, a lot of this funnel startups, you see so many of them, what's the deal here? We're just in the very beginning of this path, of this story. They discuss Skolkovo oftentimes. They say whether a lot has been done or not, and if it were not for Skolkovo, we wouldn't have this major foundation that is there in place. Can we do something better? I think yes. So when you plant a tree, nobody expects the tree to become a large oak a few years down the road. So here we have a major foundation. So based on that foundation, we'll eventually see, like Eric said, the first Skolkovo unicorn is Gepatera that developed a drug for hepatitis D, and so they got some results, $500 million. Silica last year attracted a large amount of investments from Singapore. So, and colleagues used AI to accelerate development of that drug.
Considering that we're talking about pharmaceuticals, and I guess that we will only grow it bigger and further. That's the first thing. Secondly, speaking about medicine only, we have different systems of healthcare. Soviet Union compared to Russia and compared to foreign healthcare. Across the border, it's actually more expensive. That is why the startups cost so much. But let's get from the other point of view, where we can achieve a lot of success. In our center, we have Medical RNS, the unique startup for the first time in the world. Using the AI, they can actually diagnose the tumors, the cancer. No more companies like this exist. Page from abroad has been bought. As it was assessed by $1 million. Procurement. So how will we be competing? So the data which we provide to our companies to teach their neural networks is much bigger compared to their foreign analogs. That is why the quality of their diagnosis is going to be much higher. Before that, we did an experiment, conducted it. AI in radiology. We have 26 companies participating there. This is unprecedented as well. And the quality which is going to be achieved is actually much higher than among the analogs of theirs. That is the first niche where new unicorns will appear, because AI is something we can compete in. So, and our developers are really good and the quality of data is very high. Second, everything regarding digitization and big data. We as a team have been preparing ourselves for Startup Village, and we analyzed that digitization of pizza delivery is actually much more delivered compared to healthcare and prescriptions and other things, where you can use particular algorithm, and the solutions which are going to be there, such as Tempus Abroad, they're all going to be very demanded, because Tempus, as of now, is a great support and aid to the doctors, considering those personal treatment algorithms, and it costs more than 8 billion. This is the niche where we will have the next breakthrough. To conclude, I would like to say, when we were preparing ourselves, just think on this. The market of the software is $1 trillion, and cryptocurrency is 1.5 up to $3 trillion, and medicine is only $8.5 trillion. I'm pretty sure that we'll see unicorns in this part. So we are only in the beginning, I see. Vyacheslav, maybe you have your opinion, Oleg. How PHARMASINTEZ looks at this situation. Everything seems to be working. From the point of view of biotech startups, what barriers can we see for the unicorns in Russia? Good day, everyone. First of all, so you actually stole the idea of a tree. I wanted to have it shown by the peer. Of course, it gives fruit in some time, just like everything what is created in the nature. What can I say here? Speaking about pharmaceutical companies, we, being PHARMASINTEZ, of Corpore follow this approach, and we can see ourselves as an innovative company, at least in some time. Being generic, this year we'll celebrate 25th anniversary. Our experience, as well as the world experience, is showing that we will have great competition along the way with many other companies, especially if we take a look at the Russian market. The prices are reducing, the state is regulating everything, and the future is not that bright. We can live with it, but not so wonderfully. We can see ourselves as innovative companies, and we want to become among 100 top 100 companies by year 2030. And this will be able only if we will create innovative drugs together with other companies. What obstacles do we have? Lots of those, actually, so the natural ones. Just like for a kid which wants to become a grown-up, don't go there, don't do that, etc. Technical, technological, because sometimes we don't have the necessary equipment, sometimes we have to buy it, sometimes we have to get it somehow. Sometimes, for example, after the break of the USSR, the system has degraded, and some other subsystems are not existing. So it feels like we have everything, but in some cases it's underdeveloped, it's overdeveloped, etc. But the potential is great. Speaking about vaccine, the pandemic hit us. You see how fast Russia managed to demonstrate to the world one of the best innovative products among vaccines to treat coronavirus infection. Speaking about selling this development, it would cost more than $10 billion, that's for sure. Potential is huge out there. But once again, as it often happens, especially in Russia, some manual control is required. From the point of view of the maturity of all the components. We are innovative. We can see ourselves as an innovative company. Okay, yes, you just need to configure the mechanism. Olga, what is happening in our farm?
Добрый день. Продолжим тему фармацевтики.
Yeah, speaking about pharmaceuticals.
Фарм себя позиционирует прежде всего, наверное, компания как инновационная.
We are positioning ourselves as innovative company. That is why we are really close to this topic.
Я бы, наверное, хотела остановиться на двух.
As for the problems, I would like to highlight 2 points. First of all, lack of venture financing, because farm giants like PHARMASINTEZ, for example, and our farm are not ready to invest into earlier stage products. So it was fair to say that Germany has 4,000 foundations, and if not for Skolkovo, we would be really living a sad life in Russia. We have a great foundation, we need to do something about it. It's wonderful that during the last year we had a lot of projects for review. This is indeed inspiring. And second thing, low tolerance to errors. It's another thing. Pharmaceutical company, when they evaluate innovative projects, wants to see, I hope you can hear me well through this noise of the plane. So they want to see the project with at least 50% of success. We all know these numbers, that out of 10 initiated innovative projects, 1 gets to the market, max 10-12%. Pharmaceutical company, however rich it is, however big it is, cannot invest into startups too much. Once again, startups is everything which hasn't went through the second phase. This is most risky area. The investments would be rather big, but success would be only in 10% cases. That is why we're talking about the support of the government and creation of some new funds and foundations to support new young talents, and we have those in abundance, because Russia gives birth to those in abundance indeed.
О проблематике, как вы считаете, какие барьеры у нас?
Да, друзья, добрый день. Знаете, это чем
Good idea,
говоришь, тем уже кажется, что все
friends.
умные мысли сказали. Но вот если...
The closer to the end you are, the more interesting ideas have been mentioned. But speaking about the unicorns, be on a safe side is a wonderful phrase here. I think the pharmaceutical industry is still trying to be on a safe side. Of course, you want to take a project which went through the second phase of clinical trials, maybe even in the third phase. We are rather young. We are only 10 years old. Just a few years ago, we have been startup ourselves. We have went the phase of go-go, and we already can see the capabilities and our
смотреть на стартапы, выбирать стартапы и в кого-то инвестировать. И действительно проводим
ways of working. We can invest into somebody already now. Going down to what we're doing, thanks to Skolkova, to the organizers, for organizing a great pitch session with startups during 3 hours, together with the president of our company. We have been
в нашем портфеле
listening about startups in our complementary portfolio, and we chose several companies with which we are hosting bigger meetings, because we are ready to invest into them right now. So we are actually stepped over this safe side right now. But if we take a look globally at the situation, what problem did I see during the last 12 years, let's say? First of all, we have this centralization of labs. So speaking about R&D, why Germany has decentralized labs and they're not connected by one ideology? If we take a look in the field of R&D, we are working with institutes, they have this ideology. We come to them and they are not actually able to speak about our requests. We are more commercialization and they are more about fundamental research. But now we have different programs, state programs, and pharmacological companies are going to the stage when they are ready to invest, and they are looking for different stages and projects, and they are ordering particular developments which are going to be complementary to their portfolio. Once again, what is important? We are not afraid of risking. We have the budget, the innovative budgets in the company which always exists, and we do understand that generics are important, but the main focus has to be the innovative products. We are really open to startups, and we want to look for developments which are going to be complementary to our portfolio, and even if they are not complementary to us, we are ready to invest into them. I think we got big enough for that. Thank you very much. I think startups need to write it down right now, that they have to talk to you after this meeting, maybe exchange contact details, maybe some unicorn is going to find its own company here and now. Hermes, you went through different stages. What problems are faced by startup? Speaking about unicorns, one of the startups I represent, Fusion Pharma, started existing more than 10 years ago. So we lost the status only after 10 years. So why are they so few, the unicorns? Because if we're talking about pharmaceuticals, compared to IT, they require a huge time from idea to market. 10 years from idea to market is a good timing. Roughly speaking, idea to something which is working is about 2 years. 10 years compared to 2 years. Speaking about analogy of the garden and the trees, so if we're talking about the IT companies, so Russian founders founded various companies which are costing billion and more, so they took 10 years to grow.
Да. И вот если вы теперь это отмасштабируете на...
But that's okay, yes, but if we are talking about pharmaceuticals,
Соответственно, от 50
it's by factor of 50
оценка может быть
can be
активная, но
increased. Maybe it's too conservative anyhow. But if we don't look at the time from idea to market, and we look at the idea of the establishment of unicorn, I think it's going to be much longer compared to IT. So it's rather optimistic if we're saying that we will need to wait for about 20 years to see some landscape of these unicorns. This is my mathematical view. We believe and we will wait.
Ну, мне кажется, действительно, то, что
I think
обсудили мы проблематику, и
that we have discussed the problem indeed.
я убежден в том, что
And I'm confident
всеми необходимыми
that
ресурсами
we do have all the necessary resources for the process to go faster and better. And I think that right now we have this capability to implement this idea. But speaking about the history, in order for everything to work,
я хотел вас
we have went a long road here. How did innovations develop during the last few years? What is happening in medicine and pharmaceuticals? Svetlana, how did we come to this?
Очень классный вопрос такой.
A wonderful question indeed. But I would like to remember and recall the history. Since the last 15 years,
Работаю в фарминдустрии, то
I've been working in pharma industry on FMCG, so and I went through Pharma 2020. We have been expecting it, what tasks we had ahead of us. So people are treating Pharma 2020 differently right now. After a year, we can criticize it, we can praise it, etc. Mostly it's being criticized. However,
по крайней
it
мере,
achieved some particular goals.
все-таки
The key task was to develop generics
импортозамещение связано
for us to replace the generic
Я сама
drugs.
компания отвечала.
Being the representative of a pharmacological company, I was responsible for the project, and this part was achieved indeed. Definitely, there was a particular push.
Мы смотрим на наших
But
международных
since we're looking at our international colleagues at the development of pharmaceutical industry, and in general, thanks to Pharma 2020,
рейтинги все-таки в строчках появились.
we managed to take particular ratings in our lines. It was a good step. However, Russian pharmaceutical products in the Western markets
Отдельные звезды
were not seen.
все-таки не зажгли, скажем так.
Separate stars
Продукты, они фармацевтические.
couldn't shine bright enough, and we cannot see the Russian products in the foreign markets. Another step
Важен.
is right now. For us, it's very important.
Я думаю, что
Speaking about Pharma 2030,
видели или немногие видели этот проект.
I guess many of you have seen this project, or maybe not. It's really sensible. It's a right one, because the main focus of it
Если 20
is linked to innovation. So 2020 was about generics, and right now we are focusing on innovative products. This is most important for us, and to build up on the questions of where to get the new products, because we can see that for pharma it's a very important document. But I think that it has to be known by startups which are working in this area, in medical cluster, and doing the development, which can be commercialized in the pharmaceutical industry. And one of the key areas is
замещение и
import replacement and the full cycle.
ГЛФ полностью производится в России. Фармкомпании, в частности,
When everything is produced in Russia, and we, as pharma company, answered this request directly.
полного цикла,
Since we didn't have the production of full cycle, we have a wonderful factory which is making GLF, and we're working with international pharma. But we didn't produce GLS, and we couldn't compete on the market.
и мы сделали толчок, то есть мы приняли цели и открыли.
And we gave a push. We opened the R&D lab and made a first step to become the company of a full cycle.
И важно, чтобы
It's a wonderful step indeed, but pipeline and portfolio had to be filled in as well, and we have a gap here. What do we want? I know that a range of Russian pharmaceutical companies are focusing on first-in-class products, or best-in-class. We have successes,
который сделал
BioCat, for example,
антагонист PD-1 это действительно инновационный продукт,
antagonist PD-1,
реализуется на российском.
so and it's being implemented in the Russian market. They had big plans for exports in particular.
Этап стоп.
This was the first stage when we were talking about the innovative products. Some companies
Ну, в частности, мы, да, потому что мы не так давно
are trying to be on the safe side. And we decided that we are going to take a look at startups and we want to fill in the portfolio with new products. And we're looking at best-in-class products which have particular superiority in front of the current ones. The first area, the main one, which gives us impetus, is innovation. This is new products, not generics, because we have full portfolio of generics, and our colleagues were saying that the big companies which are doing generics are already looking at innovations.
большой фокус сейчас идет на
A great focus is on gene therapy right now.
кейс приведу, хоть мы и не стартапы,
So we are not startups in pharma industry, but we wanted to have the project connected with the gene therapy, but we didn't have it in the strategy of our development. But we managed to convince the board of directors that these projects have to be with us because everybody is going to be there in 10 years and we will be
одно из важных
thinking that we didn't manage to do something in time. So gene therapy is very important for our industry. It's developing very actively, and I don't know whether we have such startups in Skolkovo. We would like to have a chat with them because we found important nosologies in which we want to invest,
хотя бы доводить их до этапа.
at least to bring them to POC stage. We are making the decision here, and we are not unique here. I think that many Russian companies are taking the same route, and many of them are already there. This is a modification of business, rebuilding ourselves to innovative products, and it's reflected in rebuilding our approaches as well. And I really like the IT cluster, their agility from the point of view of developments. They're really fast. Hermes was saying that the way is shorter. Pharma is not that flexible. We are always open, and we are really glad that we can see that some approaches can be implemented in development. We have another experience. It's not our company, but I like its experience. During the stage of development of innovative products, they had agile approaches in the product teams approaches. And I was asking, and why MVP is what in pharma? So I was asking them. And they are saying that in 1 month they are doing the construct, they are expressing it, they get the protein, and it takes only 2 months. Well, honestly, we have to do it in 2 years. So basically, they are implementing other approach in development, totally other approach. And since we are given the trend by the government, we have to follow it. And I had a question about the structure of financing. And once again, it is reflected in the big program of Pharma 2030, and the speeches and speaks are being formed, and different programs of support are being formed when we're talking about innovative approaches. So, and until the last year, everything was developing really good. Another field is CAR-T therapy, because due to the fact that we are working with oncological portfolio a lot, and the orphan sicknesses as well, when we're working with opinion leaders, CAR-T is a good thing, but we are sending the patients to China, to Israel. They are showing the labs where patients are receiving remission, so it's not treatment, it's not healing. So, and right now it's not functioning in Russia, so, and it's very sad. We have potential here. And we have startups which are working in Skolkovo, for example, with CAR-T, for example. And I think it's really lucky that we got to meet one of those. Maybe there are a lot more of those. We really hope that we would have it in Russia as well. It's a big investment project, it's a huge field. And the third thing which is important if we are talking about something else than the drugs, if we're talking about medical devices, this is the field which is developing really rapidly. Speaking about our strategy, we didn't have the strategy of medical devices at all. We weren't looking that way. But we got to meet a very interesting startup that told us about their developments. And we decided that some of the strategies should be dedicated to the medical devices. Thus, I want to go back to the first question to tell you that it's very important for us to have a dialogue, to have platforms which are going to bring us new ideas. Right now, pharma has budgets which can be invested, but these three areas are very important. Just two more words about digital medicine, about platforms. I guess our colleagues are going to talk about it more. This is not something we are actually seeing in our strategy as a company, but I know that we have a wonderful set of developments which are being released in practice, and they are all connected with the digitization. We have we are seeing startups which are coming to us, and we got to meet another company which is ready to invest, and I really hope that they will manage to do everything they want to do. So these are the three areas interesting to pharma. Thank you very much for this wonderful description. I really like how pharma transfers to agile, because we have been working with more than 12 pharmaceuticals company, and we can see how this is being rebuilt. And it's very curious and I think interesting. And I wanted to ask Olga, how is your company producing the unicorns? How are you investing into startups? Maybe you have some recommendations to the young talents how to get there. The factory of unicorns. Oh, that's too loud. We're only starting our route. But a lot has been already done. Just several years ago, our company didn't want to invest into venture projects, into some investment projects on earlier stages. How does it work? First step is always meeting in Skolkovo. We had a very productive session last year where we took a look at about 20 innovative projects, startups, and we selected several to work with. We are already working with them, and I hope that this event is going to be hosted on a yearly basis. Unfortunately, of course,
First in class, перспективно с точки зрения дохода, так скажем, на рынке.
The companies which can show great income in the market, we don't see too many of such projects. Thus, we would like both Skolkovo platforms and other platforms to participate in the process in order for us to get a chance to work with startups. And unfortunately, things are not changing in the scientific institutes. There are lots of talents there, but it's very hard to work with them now. So in the second route you can use to get to us, to start working with us, is just to send the information about yourselves, some presentation of your project to our general email. And the letter should be for business development. We have a huge department which is searching for such international projects, at least before we have been doing this. And we had lots of those before. And we have this department which is looking for interesting projects all the time. So if you send some concise information about your advantages, the advantages of your project, it's a good way to do things. Thank you very much. Oleg, are you investing in startups? And I would like to ask you, so to build up on this. Okay, so we have discussed this already, so it's quite obvious that the startups are in the range of the company, and I think you're investing into them as well. But the second part of the question, how exactly are you integrating them into the existing B2G model? Because pharmaceuticals is represented in B2G in particular. So what tools are you using? You invest in startup, and how exactly is it being integrated into B2G market, which is working according to some other rules in some way? How does it happen for you?
Thank you for the question. Startups in and innovative drugs. This is what we started investing into over 10 years ago. We innovative a drug for resistant types of tuberculosis, Perfazon. It came out over 10 years ago. That was our first experience, not necessarily the best. it had been developed back in the USSR. We had a difficult time finding something else. And since then, we constantly worked in this area with many trial and error type of thing. It's a risky process. And these days, if we look at the current situation, our portfolio, besides that perclazone, we have a drug for diabetes type 2 gazogliptin. This is a trademark, Sativex, which is their trademark. We've been selling it for 30 years. It was developed by Pfizer. So if we talk about a venture financing market, about large companies, big pharma, so that constantly looks to that they buy some ideas, or besides developing those things themselves, but some of them don't make it all the way, they sell them. And so it's possible to buy them. Forms is a secondary market of innovations. Yeah, that's an example. So we conducted clinical trials, second stage clinical trials. So also under development our several drugs on the second phase of clinical trials. Fusion Pharma is here. So they have a drug for cancer. So we're now finding patients for that in the next stage. So we have different stages which are underway for different drugs. We have there are many university developments. We work with scientific research institutes, and there's a lot of potential there. And we started to look also at international developments abroad. Second part of your question, about our strategy, it is like this. We do not invest into something to sell it later. We integrate it and we make it part of our own portfolio. It's pretty known on which things we focus. It's tuberculosis, all kinds of viral diseases, and all vaccines for prevention of those diseases is part of it. Oncology, diabetes mellitus, rheumatology, and other areas. Orphan diseases. So I think in many ways we're similar to our key competitors who are doing this similar research. Annually, we spend on all those developments about 1 billion rubles. But all of them are long-term projects, and until it all becomes obvious and until that a drug can come online, it may be a decade. A decade may pass. Thank you for this work. I think it's very valuable. And also we are open, so we have a website. Please visit it. You can submit your proposals, offers, etc. We'll respond to you. And so what, from the startup side, what does it look like? How difficult is it to advance? Germes, of course, speaking of interest, but from the perspective of this model of attracting funding, what are the key barriers that you have faced in your journey? There are barriers out there. And I wanted to comment some of the things that you said in the beginning, that there's this fear of risk, of taking risks, which is common for us Russians on the part of investors. So start-uppers are courageous, but investors are not. Investors are very careful. So there's no this culture in place. I'm not trying to criticize investors, but this culture hasn't been developed, that you invest into something and you can get nothing from it. It may not take you anywhere, and there's a probability of that. So this culture, when you select not one, but it's not like you invest all your money into one project, but in a basket of projects. And so with a lot of love and care, you put that basket together. So this culture should be developed among our investors. It's going to take some time. It may not be otherwise. So in thinking about this, I realized that there are some points such as that people who have money, they're hurry to invest into Western companies, which is okay. Let them learn from that. Let them see how it works, and afterwards they may come back and they may better invest into Russian companies. But if we talk about startups, on their side, how they look for funding here and abroad, I would say the main problem is that the lack of trust for those institutions. So there's a lot of concern. So when they see a Russian startup, they're concerned about their scientific competencies. If you demonstrate those results, they look at you and you come from Russia. It's kind of a red flag for them, and they double check that multiple times. If you have a Stanford professor, do they just take his word, believe him right away? But if it originates from Russia, they are less trusting. So when you have a venture fund or a pharma company, so you have 100 projects from Russia, you cannot check them all. And you're going to spend so much time checking them. So it's a problem. How can it be resolved? You need to do more tests. You should have successful cases, and the more of them we have, the easier it will be to proceed. You know, Germes, I think this is about lost opportunities. So before that, we discussed with Vyacheslav at the previous session, how come we miss out on so many things in Russia? We do not invest in our technologies oftentimes, and other investors also miss out on many things. So those losses, missed opportunities are mutual. So let's come back to unicorns. Vyacheslav, what do you think? So many things have been said by colleagues about risk appetite and failure appetite, integration to the market, and venture funding. So what is the recipe? Can you put it together? So in this new reality we are in now, how can Russian entrepreneurs build a unicorn? So as a proposal, colleagues already mentioned that in Skolkovo, and those platforms are a few. So we have a center at Vernadskoe 96. So like those pitches of projects, we can organize for you, upon your request, meetings with companies. I'm not trying to criticize, but it's one thing when you send it by mail, they may read it or not, but it's a whole different thing when you come there in person and you meet with startuppers, meet those people. So we talk about import substitution. We wanted to do it from the other side. So this is how operations are organized. We receive a project. It is sent to an outsourced specialist for review. If it is interesting, he tells us where it can be piloted. And we have worked like that until February 24. Then we decided to do something else. We would invite that expert from the outside to come and discuss what needs to be done in terms of import substitution. And start-uppers would say what they can do. It was very helpful to do it that way. So you may have seen people and teams and their potential, and you would formulate those objectives so that are of relevance to you. So on our part, we can provide that platform. It can be permanent platform with some frequency. We can organize those meetings maybe once or twice a month, and you can prepare your pitches, and they can tell you where their interests lie. So without any personal interest, it can be done. And second part, our center, before February 24th, we provided grants to Moscow medical institutions for them to develop new things, to do science, because we understand the more the doctors do science in partnerships with federal institutions, scientific centers, including international ones, the higher the level those doctors will be in Moscow. and the whole level of healthcare will be rising. And this year, we spent 1.5 billion rubles on those goals. After February 24th, we started having a new objective to do clinic trials on the drugs for which our healthcare has the greatest demand. And in Moscow, like with Sputnik V, in 2 months, 32,000 volunteers were organized and they participated in those trials. So we're there to help you organizationally and elsewhere, and otherwise to provide a platform to do so you would be able to do it quicker. We have unique base. We have 15 million electronic medical records of Moscow residents, and we have a base of volunteers, so we can provide a lot of help to you. And the third aspect that I would like to discuss here with the colleagues and present it, if we talk about investments in development of drugs, it's a very risky thing. Understandably, it is but also return can be much greater too. So we discussed medical startups yesterday, and many people are willing to support them because they understand those investments are not only about earning money, it's a mission. And we forgot that our country had a major culture of providing funds for science, for culture, for developing, just to change the culture, just not to make money, but to help people. So when I worked at Web, and Igor Chilov said that why do we pass those gifts to each other? If you want to contribute, maybe make a donation to that charity fund. So when our center was created last year, we decided not to give gifts to each other, but we, as a result, collected over 16 million rubles over a year. So we want to have that culture of charity. So if that goes to scientific research, for example, it can drastically change the situation that we see, because it is a risky investment. If people provide funds for those purposes, it may change the situation that we have now. Sounds great. In fact, so if we create charity funds or also funds to invest into science, into this environment, then venture capital will have more chances to enter those studies. Because our experience shows, I can tell you that we as a company with good revenues growing 300% a year, we find it difficult to attract investments still, and we understand that this risk appetite and failure appetite that Germes mentioned, because they want it to be perfect. You have to earn on this. There is no chance it can go otherwise. No error is possible. I think that's the key thought, key idea that should be changed. And when you can give it understanding that it can disappear, then you should change the culture, the attitude toward investment. Our time is running out, colleagues. Just a few words in conclusion, and we'll be able to meet each other, and you'll have a chance to meet speakers and share business cards with each other. So talking to people in person is very important. It's all based on trust. Without trust, it's very difficult to understand whether it's a good technology or not. Because Zdarovye.ru, what you used to have 6 years ago, what we have now, those projects are so different. Things do change. So to conclude, I wanted to say this. We are a specific country, and things may done differently elsewhere. That doesn't mean we should copy it, because we have our own mentality, values, principles. And it seems to me many of the things that we have developed, they come in spite of. And when you go against the flow, it may be a short-lived win. So Sputnik V was a victory, but we want to see something like that happening every year. And we need to have more such technologies. And in our environment, if there is a successful startup, it should be okay, because you gain experience. The pre-revenue investments should be a norm. Integration into B2D should be as transparent as possible. You create a startup, they prove their efficiency, you're in the market, and you're being acquired. And people shape that environment. It's about ourselves. Like back in the 1990s, market economy was developed. Now we have a great opportunity to develop Russian innovative economy. We can do it in our country to make sure there would be multiple unicorns, many unicorns in our country, and we will be proud of it. Those technology would conquer not only Russia but the rest of the world. Well, have a good remainder of the day, and thank you all, dear participants of this session. If you enjoyed it, you can always share that and you can demonstrate it with a round of applause. So let me continue and tell you what else will be happening on the platform and on the sites of Startup Image. Besides the main business program, we have some additional activities. Specifically, if you would like to learn more about activities of Skolkovo in regions, so please visit booths of regional Skolkovo operators. It makes sense. Please visit front office for innovative companies and entrepreneurs in the booth of Moscow's Department for Innovations, and it's next to the pond. That's where you can find all helpful things for young start-uppers. Go to Startup Bazaar. It's an exhibition of projects where they present prospective Russian developments for prototypes to finished products. Over 100 projects are participating this year, and on this there's opportunity to directly talk to Skolkovo Foundation people to learn more about it. We're at the the Skolkovo Welcome booth. Thank you for your attention. So our program will resume here at the main stage shortly.
Когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.
ВК-звонки доступны везде и без ограничений. В 4К и с активным шумоподавлением. Будьте всегда на связи в ВК-звонках.
Встречайте приложение ВК-клипы. Удобный видеоредактор. Уникальные маски и эффекты. И стильные фильтры для обработки. Еще быстрее, проще, вертикальнее. Теперь в отдельном приложении ВК-клипы. Место встречи талантов.
Привет! Классно шьешь, варишь, печешь и вообще что-то производишь в Москве? Тогда сейчас самое время поверить в то, что ты делаешь, заявить о себе и занять свое место на рынке, пока другие не заняли. Смотри, это твоя дверь в новый мир. Открывай и узнай, чем мы можем тебе помочь. Москва-24 для бизнеса. Давай с нами.
Журнал «Эксперт» — это российский и международный бизнес, общественно-политические процессы, аналитика и прогнозы, рейтинги и интервью. Специальные условия на подписку на сайте expert.ru. «Эксперт» — настоящий деловой журнал.
При низких температурах окружающей среды тела быстро теряют энергию. Но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.
Я верю, что сама выбираю, какой я буду завтра. Я могу выбрать быть сильнее, быстрее, легче, а могу проиграть. Но меня это не остановит. Мой выбор — уверенно двигаться к своей цели. Верь в свой выбор. World Class.
ВК-звонки доступны везде и без ограничений. В 4К и с активным шумоподавлением. Будьте всегда на связи в ВК-звонках.
Встречайте приложение ВК-клипы. Удобный видеоредактор. Уникальные маски и эффекты. И стильные фильтры для обработки. Еще быстрее, проще, вертикальнее. Теперь в отдельном приложении ВК-клипы. Место встречи талантов.
Привет! Классно шьешь, варишь, печешь и вообще что-то производишь в Москве? Тогда сейчас самое время поверить в то, что ты делаешь, заявить о себе и занять свое место на рынке, пока другие не заняли. Смотри, это твоя дверь в новый мир. Открывай и узнай, чем мы можем тебе помочь. Москва-24 для бизнеса. Давай с нами.
Журнал «Эксперт» — это российский и международный бизнес, общественно-политические процессы, аналитика и прогнозы, рейтинги и интервью. Специальные условия на подписку на сайте expert.ru. «Эксперт» — настоящий деловой журнал.
При низких температурах окружающей среды тела быстро теряют энергию. Но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.
ВК-звонки доступны везде и без ограничений. В 4К и с активным шумоподавлением. Будьте всегда на связи в ВК-звонках.
Встречайте приложение ВК Клипы. Удобный видеоредактор. Уникальные маски и эффекты. И стильные фильтры для обработки. Еще быстрее, проще, вертикальнее. Теперь в отдельном приложении ВК Клипы. Место встречи талантов.
Привет! Классно шьешь, варишь, печешь и вообще что-то производишь в Москве? Тогда сейчас самое время поверить в то, что ты делаешь, заявить о себе и занять свое место на рынке, пока другие не заняли. Смотри, это твоя дверь в новый мир. Открывай и узнай, чем мы можем тебе помочь. Москва-24 для бизнеса. Давай с нами.
Журнал «Эксперт» — это российский и международный бизнес, общественно-политические процессы, аналитика и прогнозы, рейтинги и интервью. Специальные условия на подписку на сайте expert.ru. «Эксперт» — настоящий деловой журнал.
При низких температурах окружающей среды тела быстро теряют энергию. Но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.
Я верю, что сама выбираю, какой я буду завтра. Я могу выбрать быть сильнее, быстрее, легче, а могу проиграть. Но меня это не остановит. Мой выбор — уверенно двигаться к своей цели. Верь в свой выбор. World Class.